views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Γεια σας, this is Despina Afentouli and this is Modern Odyssey on BronxNet and beyond. Today we're going to explore an uplifting story of survival. A true story about the Greek Jews is shared through the documentary film Trezoros. Trezoros is a story of interest not only to the Jewish and Greek communities around the world. It is an inspirational story that is of interest to each and every one of us, simply because it's a human story. Trezoros has participated in international film festivals within the United States, Europe, Australia, and it has been screened on PBS multiple times. Our guest today is the director, Lawrence Russo, who is also the filmmaker of the documentary film Trezoros. So, Mr. Russo, welcome to our show and thank you for having us in your offices here in New York.
Sure, thank you.
So, what does the film Trezoros mean?
Trezoros, it's a Ladino term, Judeo-Spanish, comes from the Spanish tesoro, which is treasure. And so it was a term of endearment when we were growing up. Our mother, our aunts, las trezoros, los trezoros, it was just, our treasures, they would say to their children, their family. So this, we applied towards the heritage, the history that was, and all the people that they perished.
So tell us more about your film. What is it about?
Basically, it's growing up. People would they knew that I was Jewish, and they would say, "Where's your family from?" And I would say they were from Greece. And they said, "Greece? I thought you said you were Jewish." I said, "Yes, there were Jews in Greece." And they would never realize. And for me, knowing that there was not only a history of the Jews in Greece, but for 2,000 years they were there. They're some of the oldest Jewish communities ever in history. I felt this was something that needed to be a story that needed to be told.
So what languages were used during the interviews?
The documentary, it's basically English, but of course we interviewed people in Greece, so we have Greek. We interviewed people in Israel, we have Hebrew, and there's a little bit of Ladino in it, the old Judeo-Spanish. So currently it's English, but we're doing translations in other languages as well with subtitles.
Mm-hmm. What inspired you to make this film?
Just like I said before, that it's a story that people didn't know. And really, I think it stems from growing up. Our parents, I have two older brothers, in our parents' bedroom, they would have the pictures of their parents, of our great-grandparents, our grandparents, which we never met. And one of the pictures that we use on the poster, it's of our mother's parents, and they look kind of dour and serious. It was their engagement photo. And I remember going in their bedroom and seeing this picture, like, I'm sorry, because you're asking me a question of something that is deep-rooted for me. You look at that picture of them dour, and knowing how they perished. And after getting older and understanding everything that they went through, it affected me. It affected me in a way that they were looking out, basically, that this was a story that had to be told. And So since I'm a teenager and I learned about their fate and looking at that picture, I felt a responsibility to do something to tell that story.
So, what is the message you'd like to pass to the international audience?
Just that the Jews of Greece were good people. They lived in many areas of Greece in harmony with the Christians, and they had good lives, and for 2 millennia. And it was wiped out in a matter of months during World War II, and it's a great loss, and it's a shame, and it's a story that should be not forgotten.
So Robert Morgenthau, the grandchild of Henry Morgenthau, who was the American ambassador to the Ottoman Empire during the Armenian genocide, had said that if the world had reacted to the Armenian genocide, Hitler would have been reluctant to kill Jews. What do you think about this? Why is it important to tell these stories?
Well, I mean, it's a large question as far as whether Hitler would have been more reluctant. I can't say. It's very possible. I don't know enough. I'm not a historical scholar to say one way or the other, but I believe clearly whenever there's injustice like the Armenian genocide and genocides that even go on today, that people should be aware of them and to stand up against them. You know, it's easier said than done. It's a very complicated world and a society. There were many factors that contributed to the Holocaust. It wasn't all done in a matter of a year. It was built up over time with a history of anti-Jewish mentality and things that happened even during World War I that carried over, that made the Germans very angry, and Hitler managed to coalesce this anger and direct it towards the Jews in a way that he was successful in destroying much of the Jewish culture in Europe. So these are very complicated questions. I don't know that I could give you a very good answer.
What was the biggest challenge you faced while making this film?
Part of it was that the people, when I started out, the video technology was much more expensive, the filming technology. If we wanted to get aerial shots of the town, which is a very picturesque town in Kastoria, very beautiful city, you would have to hire a helicopter, and you'd have to go through red tape and to get the permission, and in Greece it was a big headache. And we started the production just during when the drones became more available, so that helped us get much of the production value that we wanted without going to the same expense. The same with video technology, video editing, special effects. So those were things that as time progressed we were able to accomplish more practically. If we tried to get the same film done, let's say just a decade before, it would have been 5 times the cost. But on a personal level, the biggest challenge was I wanted to get it right. I wanted to get the story to convey the culture, the love that these people had, the positivity. These were strong people, and that was something that was important to convey, and I feel that we managed to do it. And so that was one of the bigger challenges. And the last thing really was that people were getting older. They were people we had scheduled to interview, and in the months and years that we were following through, they were dying. At one point, it was like one after another, like dominoes. And I remember getting very depressed that we weren't going to be able to get it done. But thankfully, we managed.
You made it. how long did it take you to finish the film?
From the time that we really started,
Which was?
well, there was the monument dedication ceremony in Kastoria, which was 1996, that all the surviving Jews, they gathered. And that was the moment that I remember Marula from, who lives in Kastoria, Marula Gabesi, she even came to me, when are you going to make a movie about this? Because she knew I was in film production. And that was the first time that the idea came to make a film, but I had a Super 8 movie camera, I had a Video 8 camera just to do whatever interviews we could. It was very amateurish. So from that, if you consider that the beginning, it's more than 15 years. But from actual production, we started the new production with the HD cameras and new stuff around 2009, I believe, 2008. So it was about 10 years, I'd say.
Can you tell us more about the sources you used for the documentary?
Many of the sources were basically our mother, who knew a lot of, she was very close with the Jews and the Christians from Kastoria. She was friendly with everybody. She knew the names, who was connected to who. So a lot of it was our mother who basically said, this is a person you can speak with, this is a person you can speak with. And that's basically just how we followed through with the people, being that she was from the town, her recommendations on who to talk to, and then they would have other people to talk to.
And would you like to tell us more about the funding? How did you produce the film? Yeah.
Like I said, as things progressed, the costs were more practical. I decided, in order to alleviate any obligations to investors, that we were going to finance it ourselves. Our family business, my brothers, Albert and Cliff, and I, through our father, and our mother, basically through our father. Our father was a very good entrepreneur, and he managed to give us a good foundation. And so from these funds, we financed the project.
So I would like to ask you, in your opinion, to what extent are there any similarities between xenophobia, populism, and nationalism of the 1930s and nowadays?
I think the common denominator is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that politicians and demagogues and certain dictators use fear to promote certain agendas, and different segments of the population react in different ways. And unfortunately, I think sometimes it leads to persecutions of different populations because people manifest these fears, and again, just like Hitler did with the Jews, try to point it at certain groups of people and say, well, these are the people to blame. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a complicated subject, but I think if you're asking me for a parallel, it's fear-mongering.
So one interesting part of the story in Greece is that in 1943, Archbishop Damaskinos and 27 prominent leaders of organizations signed an official letter of protest in Athens, Greece, highlighting the unbreakable bonds between the Christian Orthodox and Jews, identifying them jointly as Greeks. We also have the story of Zakynthos, where no Jews were killed because Metropolitan Chrysostomos and Mayor Lucas Carrer protected the Jews,
Yes.
who were living on the island. So I would like to ask you, how important is it to stand up for people who are in danger?
Well, these people that you mentioned, they were great people. They were great men. They were heroes. Especially in the environment of World War II, when the Nazis were so brutal, to be able to stand up to a group that they knew death could have easily come to them. You know, it's extremely, the question is how important it is to stand up. Of course, it's extremely important, but to do so in a way that you can help. There were plenty of people that stood up and got killed for it, and nothing came from it. You know, it's a difficult decision to make, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And these people who did it, they were the bravest that you can imagine.
The Holocaust survivors who managed to live through this extremely difficult situation, they would not speak for years. That's what we know.
Yes.
So the fact that the genocide was recognized from Germany, that it was a mistake. What does it mean to these people? How important is it that in relation to dealing with their trauma?
The fact that Germany recognized it as a mistake,
Yes.
I would hope that that would be recognized. Well, our parents, my parents, when we were growing up, didn't speak of their experiences. All I remember as a kid is I saw the number on their arm, and I'd say to my mom and dad, you know, what is that? Mm-hmm. And they would, I remember my mom answering, a bad person put it there. What does that mean? And then as I got older and I learned about the history, I was like, they used to put numbers on the arms of the Jews that were in. This is what my parents went through. You know, it was definitely traumatic. I remember when I learned about it, it changed my perspective on a lot of things to realize that this horrible event is where I come from. You know, my parents were two of the 38 survivors of Kastoria. We're like the last remnants. If it, you know, it's a miracle that we were born. Yes. So how important it was. I know that our father didn't like. He wouldn't buy anything German. He wouldn't want to hear the language. I remember once when I was maybe 12 years old, I was listening to records of classical music, and it was Beethoven. Mm-hmm. And I liked it. It was Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and it was beautiful music. And I turned it on the stereo, and it's loud. I'm in the house, and they're getting to the point where the vocals come in, and they're speaking in German, dun, 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 dun. And I'm listening to it. I was like, oh, this is very strong, nice music. This is before I knew what happened with that. And my father walked in, and he's listening to me, his son listening to this music in German. And I see that he's not looking happy. And I said, Dad, is anything wrong? Is something wrong? No. I said, you don't like this music? No, I don't. You know? And, but he didn't say you can't listen. He didn't say anything like that. It's just he wanted to see what it was. They never expressed what happened because, and they told me, they didn't want our lives to be affected by that negative history. Mm-hmm. They wanted us to have the best opportunities. Not every family was necessarily like that, but that's how our parents were.
Mm-hmm. It is known that there is a Center of Studies of Jewish Heritage in Kastoria. Can you tell us more about it and how it relates to your film?
Well, this is a museum project that Anthony is involved with, my brother Cliff. Mm-hmm. And basically it will be a place, hopefully, that will show artifacts and history from the community that existed before the war. So it's basically a place that you can go to learn more about that community, the Jewish community.
What are you working right now?
Right now I'm just dealing with a few personal issues that I have to get through. And the next project, when it begins, will hopefully be a comedy, something more lighthearted and easier to swallow.
Do you have any advice for aspiring filmmakers who want to make stories that matter?
That it takes a long time, it's a lot of work, it can be a lot of heartache and tears, but if you stick with it, it can be worthwhile.
Well, Mr. Russo, thank you so much for this great discussion.
Thank you.
And thank you for having us here.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for coming.
So who are in these pictures?
Well, basically, this is a folder, that I made in Kastoria, because I'm preparing, a photographic exhibition of the community before and after the war, so people will get an idea what the community was all about. This over here is a photograph that shows, like the community at the Jewish cemetery that doesn't exist in Kastoria anymore. And over here you can see, like this is Larry's and Cliff's father, over here, the boy, and this is their mother over here, So this was when they were kids, and this is probably, like early 1930s. On other pictures, you see people that immigrated to America before the war, because with the new immigration law in 1910 in America, a lot of people moved out of Kastoria, even though it was Ottoman Empire, it was Ottoman occupied. And this is the stores that they were having, like in Kastoria, the Jewish families, picnics, how they lived together, This is dark side of Kastoria. It was fascist people, that they were during 1930s, and they were called the National Front at the time, all right? And this is other Jewish families, weddings, this events that happened there, especially, the synagogue. The synagogue was destroyed in 1948, all right? And this is other families in America, friends. This is kids, like children that were taken away. Out of 1,000 people that more or less, the community numbered before the war, only 32 people survived, 370 children, none of them came back. This is two of the original pictures, that this is where the community was taken together, from the Germans, and this is the German artilleries that came, like to Kastoria, at the time. The purpose of this photograph that I have in the folder is to emphasize to some people here how important is the locals, and also, in Greece, to see, what the community was all about, and also, like if they can spare some of their family pictures to show more. This is different events within Kastoria.
That was before the war?
Before and after the war, This is 12 of the survivors that came back to Kastoria. Because of all this that started with Larry and the documentary, we came about, to make two other things in Kastoria. Number one is we decided to make a museum with the help of Cliff and the Russo family, basically. And also, like a library that we started, a couple of years ago, and I have mailed, to Kastoria about 600 books. This is a place where the museum is going to be located.
In Kastoria, northern
In Kastoria.
West Greece.
Northwest part of Greece. With a lot of history there, the area is where the Macedonian struggle took place before they were liberated from the Ottoman Empire. And also, like the last 3 years of the Civil War and the final battles of the Civil War in 1948-49, took place around the mountains of Kastoria.
We're proud to say that every April we do have a Memorial Day, remembering the Jews of Kastoria that perished during the Holocaust. It is very well attended not only by locals, but also by Greek government officials, by the German consulate and others. And it is a very beautiful function that we're proud to maintain and continue going forward.
One more story you told me about the suitcase.
Well, it was a couple of years ago. We had students from Berlin, from Germany, basically, from the university there. It was like 20 to 25 people. And we thought, you know, in order to promote the idea of the museum there, to have a sort of called museum in a suitcase. So what I did, some of the articles that have been, and the artifacts that have been collected for the museum, I placed them in a suitcase, like this, or an old suitcase. And I said to the children that these items, it was a story, you know, like it was a Jewish lady that wanted to come to New York and get married here in 1944. But before she made it to America, the Germans got to Kastoria, so they took the whole community, so she had to leave behind her suitcase and whatever was inside. So going through the art, whatever was in there, it was some of her dresses, a National Geographic from March of 1944, her camera, you know, the shoes for her husband to be here in America, and other things, you know, her shoes, you know, personal stuff. We asked the students of the university to put themselves in her position and write a composition, write a presentation of how they will feel to be on her shoes. Some of them, they even draw the girl, all right? Some of them, they call them Rosa, some of them, they call them Rachel, all right? So, 25 different stories, and we presented this in Berlin. It's a big organization, though, that participates in 22 different countries. ISF is the name. International is in memory of the lost communities in Europe, Jewish communities in Europe. So it was a presentation given there, and they congratulate us for doing all this work, even though we don't have a community in Kastoria, and even though we haven't established a museum yet. And that's what we really want to do, you know, to remind people about the community, about the essence of these people, and what a message they can deliver, you know, as an education to keep our youth away from all these fascist ideas that now they deliver in Europe, you know, like from different politicians, especially, you know, in Austria, in Germany, in France, and in Greece, all right? But the best way to fight anti-Semitism and to fight all these fascist ideas is by providing people with education.
Fortunately, in the last few years, we've been able to show the documentary Trezoros to the community of Kastoria, and it's been extremely successful, and it's opened up their hearts to understand the trauma that the Jewish community went through. And that's why every year we do have a Memorial Day, and it's recognized by the Greek government, locally and nationally, and it's well attended by members of different parliaments of different countries, especially the German and Greek governments. And for us especially, that we remember, it is a heartwarming and heartfelt moment. But nevertheless, we do it every year because we do have to remember, we cannot forget all those who perished, and of course, on top of everything else, the Holocaust, to, as we say in Greek, potexana, never again.
Thank you so much for watching Modern Odyssey on BronxNet and beyond. I'm Dr. Despina Afentouli. Until next time, Yasas.